Ultraman Rising. After nearly 60 years of being a Japanese icon fighting a variety of kaijus, Ultraman is heading towards a new direction with his own American animated feature for streaming. It's an unusual move for a popular Japanese IP to find themselves in this kind of situation, but it fittingly has an unusual story of how it came to be. You see, this movie is all thanks to animation veteran Shannon Tyndall, the man who is credited as the creator of Laika's most underrated film, Kubo and the Two Strings. He had this idea for a feature ever since he was working on Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends as a character designer, and carried it with him all the way up to Netflix, where he made the critically acclaimed miniseries Lost Ollie. And after making that show, he finally got his chance to bring his movie to life, but with the one condition that the script had to be updated to have it be about Ultraman. Since Tyndall already had great confidence in the story, it should be no problem that some cool kaiju battles are added to the mix. By the way, I'll say now that I'm honestly not familiar with the Ultraman franchise. I was aware of its existence and how it was a Power Rangers-like series that has its own legacy. My knowledge on the hero is minimal at best. This is why I'm coming into this review with the perspective of a newcomer to Ultraman, using this movie to have my first true taste of who this monster fighter is. So now that Ken Sato has a baby, will this movie rise above my expectations? Or will this be more destructive than the film's kaijus? Let's find out. The story. It's funny how this movie has all this Japanese iconography, yet that somehow makes it more obvious how the storytelling is distinctively American. Even if it's a major selling point of the picture, it doesn't have a lot to do with big kaiju battles. I'll say now that the amount of action that you get in this is minimal. That's because what this movie is all about is parenthood, as Ken Sato finds himself raising a baby kaiju while maintaining his life as a baseball player and being Ultraman. One credit that I will give this is that this is a well-planned out movie. It thoughtfully mapped out the kind of arc that Ken goes through as he grows his bond with the baby, while trying to settle with his personal issues that he has related to his own parents. It gradually takes its time to present the evolution of his heart so that the ability to maintain himself with all the circumstances thrown at him becomes more controllable.
Now, if she wakes up, put her show on. Let her dance her little heart out to that stupid song, and if there's any trouble, you ping me on this, got it?
Also, what the movie values the most is its theming of family and the message of balance. It's very clear that every character featured in this has a strong sentiment about family, and how that is the motivator to their respective actions, while the balance message is about the importance of doing your job well and raising a child. It's very difficult to do both at the same time, but one of the biggest steps of being successful at parenthood is to find that balance so that you could be there for both yourself and your kid. Yes, nobody is able to get it right the first time. Some can't even do that for years. But it's like a superhero power that can take a lot of work, but it is indeed possible that anyone can do it.
Being Ultraman isn't about fighting. It's about heart. Using your power to bring balance.
However, like all superheroes and monsters, the movie has one noticeable weak spot that stops it from being all-powerful. Remember when I said that this has an American-style storytelling?
Oh, no.
What I mean is that the materials to build this story consists of an overwhelming amount of cliches and tropes that are too commonly found in Hollywood-style animated family films. So much so that it depends on low-hanging fruit in order to give itself and its cast some appeal, such as Ken's mom being presumably dead, Ken going from being selfish to selfless, and relying a lot on the baby's cuteness to have its charm.
Ken, you cannot feed a 20-foot baby a half-ton of fish and expect anything but a giant pile of...
This is why the biggest downside for me is that the movie's emotional core feels artificial. It's primarily copying tiring elements that many other animated features have done before in order to create its own story. I'll hand it to director Shannon Tyndall and his team that they made the most out of the materials they were given, but they can only do so much with them until they quickly become stale. And for a movie that's supposed to be heartfelt, where viewers are meant to emotionally connect with the characters, that is a critical problem that could cost its rewatchability value.
No. I only wanted to protect you.
But you didn't. You didn't even pay attention.
Another element that makes this stand out as an American feature is how it emphasizes its theme of parenthood. Again, I applaud this for having a unique and strong message about what it means to be a parent. But it's like the movie wants to make it so abundantly clear of its theming by having several scenes where they have to stop and give a lecture about either the importance of family, finding balance, or juggling responsibilities. There are times when it can be helpful to flesh out the characters to discuss about their motivations, but these constant reminders of Ken's role to the baby kaiju can get annoying when the feature repetitively hits the brakes while on the move.
Using his amazing powers to keep everyone safe. He called it maintaining balance. How do you do it? Juggle everything, your job, your kid?
Ultraman's most important task is finding balance.
Family is everything.
I just hope you two can find balance.
Your mother and I spend our lives juggling.
Alright, I get it!
Would I consider the story to be bad? Not entirely. The best way to describe it is like if you build a great-looking monster costume out of cardboard. The craftsmanship put into it is admirable, but put it in action and the materials will make it fall apart. The animation. Here's something interesting. Even if this was produced by Netflix Animation, the visuals were actually created at the acclaimed visual effects workshop, Industrial Lights and Magic, whom the only other animated film that they fully developed was Rango back in 2011. And I know many people will try to correct me and say that they also did 2015 Strange Magic, but I personally think it doesn't count because I categorize that as a disaster instead of a movie.
What do you mean?
I don't know. I was expecting more.
What?
Anyways, ever since Netflix revealed the first look of the picture, I knew that this was the platform's answer to the Spider-Verse films. Something where the animation is meant to be hyper-stylized in order to make itself stand out from all the other computer-animated films and emphasize its own action. And while it went towards that similar direction, it was able to achieve some great results that does set itself apart from Spider-Verse. Out of everything in this film, the animation plays the biggest role in paying homage to the legacy of Ultraman. The most prominent, and also the most subtle effect it did across the entire movie is applying this filter to make it look like you're watching it through a retro television set. A throwback to the franchise's TV roots. You won't notice it if you don't pay attention, but look closely and you'll see the diagonal lines are always there.
The fans don't expect you to be Ultraman.
Another tribute to the franchise is the kaijus themselves. I don't know if these are the same ones that are featured throughout the shows and movies, or if they were created exclusively for this film, but they were crafted in a similar style to classic kaijus, where their structure is a lot like those rubber suits that actors wore for the older Ultraman shows. But of course, the animators made sure that they could be much more than that with their special abilities, bold colors, and animal-like behavior. And while it pays respects to its source material, it also does its own tricks to have it be unique as an Ultraman adventure. As a movie that discusses a lot about balance, the greatest balance that it does is with the designs. Taking inspiration from Spider-Verse, the look falls in the middle of 3D graphics and 2D pages from a manga, where it has the aesthetics and the craftsmanship of a 3D movie, but has the textures and the attention to detail of a Japanese comic. Add Tyndall's signature style that he applied onto Kubo and the Two Strings, and the combination suits greatly with the Ultraman theming. But the moments where the animation is at its best is with the action scenes. Again, there are not a lot of times where you see Ultraman in battles, and the movie probably would have benefited more if we can have a bit more kaijus instead of babysitting this infant from the Black Lagoon. But when they do happen, they make the movie exciting with an intense fast pace, a giant scale that plays around with the cinematography, and make the effects pop out with eye-catching colors as both Ultraman and the kaijus show their powers at their true potential. Not to mention how they help serve an amazing climax to make that final battle as epic as it could possibly be. Due to being a newcomer to the franchise, I cannot say if this movie is one of the hero's greatest moments, but I can say for certain that the animation created one of the best looking versions of Ultraman. The characters. As I've mentioned before, with the movie's main theme of family, the character's main role is to show what family personally means to them and how that results in the kind of actions that they do. On one hand, it does help to add a thoughtful layer to them with a bit of a background to show their motivations, and how that relationship modeled them to become what they are. Also, the voice acting does help make their emotions feel more genuine, and with what they have to experience throughout, there is a lot for the actors to show off their performances, especially Christopher Sean as the lead, highlighting both Ken's confidence and vulnerability.
If somebody could do that with a bat and a ball, get your attention, make you smile, well, then that was something I needed to do.
On the other hand, the only problem with them is that the materials they were given are once again dull and weak, where the extra layer and the acting are not good enough to cover the repetitive types of tropes that they have to play. And they sometimes take over so much of the character that they make the stronger efforts put onto them feel minor. To further show my point, let's begin by talking about Ultraman himself, Ken Sato. His role in the film is to begin as a selfish egomaniac who has to grow a heart when he raises a baby kaiju. Yes, this is another animated movie that stars one of those kinds of jerks. And while there are many flavors of that, the best way to describe Sato in this film is as if you're watching the first Cars movie and thought to yourself, gee, I sure do wish Lightning McQueen had daddy issues.
Ow, ow, ow!
Honestly, I don't think Ken is among the better examples of that trope. He starts out very arrogantly that it makes it tough to be on his side in the picture. Maybe his relationship with his father can help a little to later show that he can love, but like how I feel about McQueen in the first Cars film, his likability starts very low that it takes a little too long to see any charm in him.
Want to hit a few balls, Ken? That always makes you feel better.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And in the picture, he's shown to not be alone, as he is accompanied by his supercomputer assistant Mina and the baby kaiju, who is pretty much a baby slowly learning what she can do, as the movie unfortunately puts in a lot of filler by mistaking its cuteness as substance. Amongst the other people in the film, there's Ken's dad, Professor Sato, who was the previous Ultraman and later reunites with his son to help raise the kaiju. By the way, I forgot to mention that while it has a basic world-building format of a Japan that can have a kaiju problem, it doesn't explain how the Sato family have their powers, how they pass that down to the next generation, or where they come from in the first place. I know this might sound like a nitpick because the superhero element is secondary in this film, but it would be nice for newcomers like me to learn more about who Ultraman is other than a superhero who grows big and fights monsters.
It's actually kind of cool turning into a giant superhero. It's just, I'm not very good at it.
Then there's Amy Wakita, the journalist who is curious about Ken's life and does her best to take care of her hyperactive daughter.
It's okay, Mama. I will protect you. Swat!
And finally, there is the villain, Dr. Onda, the head of the Kaiju Defense Force. What's interesting about him is that Onda does have a heart and cares about people. Because of the death of his wife and child, he feels like he suffered a fate that no one should have, and makes sure that the people who work for him can have a chance to be with their loved ones.
But I've learned that hard decisions must be made to protect those we love. Understand?
But that's just a small part of him, as most of it is the typical bad guy who wants to exterminate all the kaijus, and will stop at nothing to accomplish that goal. By the way, as this was directed by Shannon Tyndall, it shouldn't be a surprise that Ollie from Lost Ollie would make an appearance. What was surprising, however, is that Ollie would be more than just a simple cameo, and in his own toy-like way, helps out to raise the baby with the Santos.
Okay, now. Hold her steady, Kenji.
The characters can provide a little extra to the feature. They help present the importance of family and have some strong performances to make their emotions feel real. Unfortunately, those assets are minor compared to their roles of just being the typical archetypes that you'd commonly find in family films. For an Ultraman movie, I wouldn't call these characters Ultra. I will admit now that maybe not everyone will agree with me with this review, and that's fine. I know there are some people out there who will like this movie more than I do, and easily get into the movie's charm. I'll even say that maybe there will be some who will love this movie and consider it their favorite Netflix film of the year. But for me, the best that I could say is that this is fine. It's not the best animated movie I've seen from Netflix, but it's overall okay. Ultraman Rising has what it takes to be an amazing animated feature, but it holds back from its true potential where, without the franchise's iconography, there is a core that reveals it to be just another generic American animated film. It is able to stand well on its own with some fantastic animation, awesome action, impressive directing, and a solid voice cast, but the writing depends too much on weak and overused cliches that it turns the film into a tiring Japanese-themed Feed the Kitty. While I may not be a big fan of this film, I do highly recommend this movie to parents, those who want to have kids, and maybe kaiju fans. I feel like they got a higher chance of loving this movie more than I do. And I think this is worth checking out in general, especially to see that great animation, although I wouldn't consider this to be a high priority. But one priority I'd recommend now is to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss more videos that I have in store, especially if you enjoyed this review. Ultraman may have learned the balance of parenthood, but his balance on making a movie like this one has some room for improvement.
You did a very good thing, Kenji.
We did a good thing, Dad.